For the ordinary Ugandan, the basic price of many commodities essential to the running of a home have gone up. Price increments in sugar, soap, bread, and cooking oil have bolted harder a belt that had already been tightened by COVID-19 measures. The president has attributed the rise in prices to the ongoing invasion of Ukraine by Russia, which has caused global supply chain problems. But before that attack, the price of fuel had gone up threefold. The opposition, through their shadow finance minister, are asking government to suspend taxes and digital tax stamps as an immediate measure to handle the crisis. But what explains the inflation that many Ugandans are now having to live with? But an even better question is, how can it be resolved? Tonight on The Spot, we host the shadow finance minister, Muwanga Kivumbi, and the head of economics at Makerere University's Business School, Dr. Ronette Atukunda. Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi and Dr. Ronette Atukunda, thank you so much, both of you, for having honored our invitation. I must say Uganda's spotlight tonight is on you. A warm welcome to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Let me begin with you, Dr. Ronette Atukunda, because you're an economist. We have to dig deeper in our pockets these days to be able to buy basic home requirements, soap, bread and cooking oil and stuff like that. We are paying through the nose, and it's painful. What explains this, in your view?
Thank you very much, Patrick, and I'm honored to be here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Patrick, I believe that the causes of the increase in the prices we are seeing can be attributed to both factors outside Uganda, the global environment in which we find ourselves operating, and probably can also be attributed to factors within Uganda. For example, due to the lockdown and the sudden shutdown of economies that was brought about by the COVID-19 crisis, you had supply chains suddenly shrinking. These supply chains were for raw materials, supply chains were for transportation. So transport is in logistics. You have the supply of oil had to shrink because demand greatly dipped. As you know, the airline industry almost came to a halt and we were all at home. So now with the opening up of the global economy, suddenly you have an increase in demand. And then you have supply chains that are just recovering to try and catch up. And supply must follow demand, because when the economy suddenly shut, many of them were caught with excess supply. So now they have to keep on following the increase in demand, but now demand has suddenly increased. We are all back to work, we're all moving. So now demand is increasing, and as long as demand exceeds supply, the price is going to go up. So you're having supply chains recovering, but we have logistical problems, because manufacturers have reported problems with shipping vessels, as many of them were not moving. The few that are moving increased prices by as much as $300 per container. So you're finding supply is low, but even transporting it is expensive. And then another factor came into play. The oil prices began to rise. Now, as the oil prices are rising, remember, the production of oil is mainly controlled by oligopolistic market structures with these cartels. And because they had shrunk supply, now they suddenly have to increase supply. But you have countries like Nigeria that are struggling with investment issues. And then we can't ignore Russia. Although at times it's speculative, we don't yet have the data, but we can't ignore Russia because it is the second largest oil producer in that cartel. So we're having oil prices are going up, supply is having issues, transportation is having issues.
I want to agree with you, Dr. Ronette,
yes.
But I remember when we had price increases in oil, in fuel, or pump prices going up, it was because we saw protests of truck drivers on the Kenya-Uganda border. And that's when the prices went up. 1 week or 2 weeks after that has been sorted, we thought maybe we could fall back to the position where we're at because there's no more protest. What explains that?
But Patrick, remember that in about October, the price for a barrel of crude was about $64. By December, it was between $80 to $90. By February, we had hit $100. Sometime in March, we hit $124, and now we are back to 100. There is no way the price of crude can be going up, and the fuel prices are not going up.
So that was a double jeopardy that we came from the protest and then the barrel of oil going
We are
up.
having a crucible of factors happening at the same time, and they're all driving up.
I would want to hear about the local factors you talked about.
Now, some of the local factors, although are a bit touchy, but...
yeah, that's what we need to.
Yes.
Touch them.
Especially from the side of the manufacturers, they mention, one, the digital tax that you talked about. And to me, I think the digital tax may not be bad in itself. It may just disrupt distribution. Because of all that you need to go and clear with URA, clearing logistics, clearing this, clearing that, you find that the time for you to clear and then supply goods to Kaberamaido and what is being disrupted. So that is why I might believe that when the shadow minister says remove this, it is because we're finding ourselves in a crisis. So I don't think it is completely abandon it. It may just be in the immediate short run. We have tightened our belts, they're about to break. Okay. So what do we do to stop our belts from snapping? So that's why they might be saying in the immediate short run, we don't have the data on how this will translate into the economy, but maybe in the very immediate short run, you will have goods getting to the suppliers quickly.
So if I'm hearing you very correctly before I got your neighbor Muwanga Kivumbi, part of the problem is some kind of an imported inflation?
Yes.
Okay. Let me come to you, the Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi. You are a people's representative, and we are feeling the financial squeeze. People in Butambala are pressed against the war, and indeed everywhere else in Uganda. You're Minister, Shadow Minister of Finance. What do you tell them?
Well, two things. One, the Russian crisis which people want to incite. Russia invaded Ukraine on 22nd of February. That's like hardly 4 weeks ago. We're already having inflationary tendencies in the country. So that does not explain. It may, actually the effect of Russia is yet to come. So that's 2 weeks ago. Then when you also look at the price index by UBOS of petrol, in February, 1 year ago, February 2021 and February now, petrol went 34%, diesel 26%, firewood 14%. And I'm talking about firewood. What is fun about firewood and charcoal? That even the very affluent in this country still use charcoal.
Even you, Honorable? This is the result of the likes of that.
I'm told you I don't need to explain what I use home, but I do. Even the people you think, those so nice bungalows, they use charcoal. So literally some even use firewood. They say firewood cooks better. You know, I don't want to explain what goes into that. And then, as it says, we looked at the local factors majorly. But even the global factors, they were predictable for smart economies. But during COVID, there was cheap oil.
Yeah.
For countries that were smarter, they increased their stock,
Reserves,
their reserves, because oil was cheap. At one time, they were only looking for where to sell it, because once you have it out of the ground, and because COVID came, they're saying they were simply floating with the oil there. So smart people, business people, and smart economies, and who had built adequate reserves, bought and stocked. For you, your reserves were empty.
We don't even have a reserve that can take us for more than a month.
What I want to tell you that your reserves in parliamentary sessions were asking that on a general, the Minister of Finance, to explain why our reserves were empty. At a time when oil was
What's
cheap,
the capacity of our reserves? Anyway,
we were supposed to take us 3 months.
do we have that kind of storage capacity in Uganda?
You do, but you gave it to, I don't want to go to whom you gave it to, but some of the people who are managing it is,
CNOC.
now UNOC has taken over.
Yes.
But before it was Hash and these
Yes,
other,
absolutely.
so I don't want to go into people's
Yeah, but
businesses.
because
I don't
they are
want to
talking
go.
about maybe 7 days or 10 days
No,
at
no,
most. I
no, I
do
want to
not
tell you that-
believe that we have capacity to store fuel that can take Uganda for the next 3 months.
Yes, we are supposed to. If we don't, then we mismanage the country. These are standards. You must have, must have financial reserves in currencies that take you through those. Those are standard things for just good governance. You don't need to be a smart doctor of economics to know. Those are standard things for you to run a home. A country is more like a home. You must have a stock of your bill of electricity to last 2 months, blah, blah. So things you must have normally to run. But at that time, you can imagine there was cheap oil. You would buy stock. Others did that and they are better off to go. But still, the IMF and World Bank predicted these effects. And they went to third world countries, first of all with the donation. But they also gave us a $1 billion US package to manage these aftermaths. What happened? In the first quarter, we got $258 million US. That is almost $1 trillion shilling. We massively borrowed. And you're speaking about a country, by the way, people talk about subsistence that has big abundance of food. We have really, we can sustain ourselves with. That's why people are crying about shop. They're not saying maize. So that's where you are. And for me, when you look at the cartel of this, you see an element of incompetence in management.
So now,
but then, let me go to the real factors. I talked about the digital stamp. When the digital stamp came up, the digital stamp is a good thing. You are supposed to track those who evade tax and optimize our tax efficiency. As you are aware, for the last 10 years, our budget efficiency has been stagnating at 12%, below the region, about 16%. Okay? So we have been the most ineffective in collecting tax per GDP.
okay,
Not in quantities. Qualitatively,
the tax
they've been...
ratio to GDP.
Yes. Qualitatively, we've been raising naturally because of bigger population, bigger production, but the tax efficiency.
Or raising or taxing
We've
more
been
heavier,
stagnant.
or taxing more the same people.
Yeah, you are taxing more. We've been stagnant.
2 million people who are taxed.
Yes, you have been stagnant at 12%, 12% per GDP. We need to go to 16. Okay, we've set it a target in the chart of fiscal responsibility. Now, so when the digital stamp came, we questioned, first of all, a company called SIPA, okay, was first given 145 billion to implement this. And then the challenge with it is that later on they were supposed to shift the cost of the digital stamp to a manufacturer.
Okay.
And now when you shift the cost to a manufacturer, essentially it will be borne by the buyer,
consumer.
by the consumer. And when they reinforced it, has been around, but it was introduced 3 years ago. When they reinforced it heavily, we had to suffer. Amidst this, when we were passing the other budget, you remember, we increased the levy on tax, on oil, tax levy, by 1,000. Those are domestic issues. Then you realize that as this stamp and taxes came into, but there were issues. So we also have something very archaic. A lot of people don't know. It's called fuel marking.
Yeah.
Actually, this is scandalous. by the same company called SIPA. It's the one in digital. It is the one also in fuel. Fuel marking, you mark fuel.
What does that entail?
I don't know. You know what fuel marking is.
That's what I need to know.
So countries mark fuel, especially in transit. If Kenya marks fuel coming to Uganda, so that is not dumped there. There could be variance in taxes, and it's cheaper, and you dump it there. Now, under the single customs union, you pay fuel at the border for revenue. You pay for it at Mombasa, at the point of entry. So by the time oil leaves Mombasa, URA has already gotten its money. Now, when it comes to the border, Kenya marks fuel coming to Uganda. Uganda ideally should mark transit fuel to Rwanda and wherever. Okay? Now, but you also mark fuel for UPDF, for the army. Okay? There are 3 levels of marking. But fuel that is supposed to be domestically consumed in a particular country is not marked anywhere in the world. Uganda is the only country that does so. What's the cost? 30 shillings per liter. Now, this effectively does 2 things. One, as you are aware, the moment any increment you put on a liter of fuel, it's the consumer that bears the burden. But also it causes delay in the turnaround time. A truck is there waiting for 2 hours for one to dip, okay? So that you can be told how much money you should pay. That was the same crisis we entered in when we had the one of testing for COVID. You are tested at the Kenyan border, then you come to Uganda, say, you test again. Now, these are the 3 big factors locally that we mismanaged. We mismanaged the COVID stimulus. Money we went in to build Akamwesa, and you know what happened with that money. Instead of really pressing it, then you have the cost. When you have excess power, okay, and the cost of energy is still high, and you have excess, we produce more than we consume, then you have given a 5-cent advantage to big manufacturers. But the small-scale manufacturers, you are not aiding them that way. You are not helping the situation. So oil has been the leading factor pushing. Therefore, you have to look at oil and say, what are the small things that we can effectively address and lessen the impact?
All right. I want to thank you for that very big preamble. And Dr. Ronette, I know you have a point, but I also want you to ask this question. Probably we are better off as a country because we have a subsistence economy. If it was more developed, people are just getting in their gardens and eating here and there. If it was more developed, maybe it would be a much bigger crisis now.
Certainly, you find that the trickle-down effect, especially in the financial system, the more interconnected you are to the developing countries, when something hits them, it will almost hit you immediately. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise, maybe it is not. That is why you had the 2008 financial crisis. It took about 3 years for the effects to begin getting here, because we are not as connected. But does that mean we're better off? Probably not. I wouldn't think so.
So now, how do we fix this?
Because you cannot say you're better off remaining poor, you're better off not connecting the natural system. It just slows down.
I mean, their pain is not our pain. If somebody in Kapasanda is getting some matoke or getting sweet potatoes to eat,
yes.
you're not like the guy in Nairobi who's living in a real capitalistic economy. Yes,
whereas the guy in the US and Nairobi are now struggling with increase in fuel and energy and what. The person in Kasanda has to pay 10,000 for soap. So something has reached them. It may get there slower, but it has reached them. They're eating sweet potatoes, but they can't wash. Or if nothing is done, before you know it, we shall have no purple leaves left, because that's going to become people's soap. So we have different problems. Our shoes pinch us in different places, but maybe remaining underdeveloped may not be the solution. Yeah. But I also wanted to add one more point to the domestic quantities mentioned that are really being pinned to this increase in soap. We know that the price of oil has gone up by about 77% and soap by 48%. Honorable mentioned that. And people are trying to pin that on the tax on importation of crude palm oil. But I would want to submit that that tax was introduced, but the effects of the tax were not really felt that much until all these factors came into play. We are having, for example, Malaysia and Indonesia are one of the largest producers of palm oil, which is the main input in the production of soap and oil. And they are transiting from exporting raw oil palm, and they want to increase on value addition. One country wants to increase from 10 to 20%, the other from 20 to 40, and therefore they are reducing on the supply of oil palm. At a time when fuel prices are rising, at a time when supply chains are having a problem. So it's a whole mix of things that are happening at the moment. And I believe the cost of raw materials is hitting. That is why, even if inflation is going up, it is specifically oil, soap, and then maybe schools and other factors. You'll find that posho is going up but not as much, right? Sugar is going up but not as much, but we're feeling it on those particular commodities that have also been hit by the oil.
Because we're already buying them at a higher price.
Yes.
So definitely to come here, that is a clear case of imported inflation.
Yes.
So, you know, we are into a budget cycle, Honorable Shadow Minister of Finance. I wonder whether this is an opportunity for your parliament. Your job is appropriation, and appropriate funds in a way that maybe now we can have money that can work, resources that can work, and think about things that we can do here.
Yeah, but you see, I've had that shift of burden to Parliament. But the first call on duty on all this is the executive.
Okay.
You have a whole minister, a whole treasury. You have the National Planning Authority. You have Bank of Uganda, stocked with all the finest economic brains in this country. They are the first people to be called to answer this, to find solutions, to get answers to this. Parliament has oversight and a budgetary function, but they're not implementers. And even their recommendations are advisory to government. I want to walk the treasury just here, okay? In a crisis of this nature, you would find lights on that building with people working out solutions. They are busy sleeping. They left at 5 to go home and sleep. You would find the National Planning Authority. This is the time the Planning Authority should be working. You'll find, because inflation, fiscal policy, and monetary policy, Bank of Uganda monitors those elements, very, very critical. Where is Bank of Uganda? His voice in this. Before you even come to Parliament, we will do our work. We are going into ministerial policy assessment. We'll assess the tax, we will do everything, but we don't propose those tax. And remember, we don't have powers to charge the consolidated fund. It's sometimes people don't know Parliament does not have powers to put a charge on a consolidated more than 2 shillings. So all the proposals, expenditure proposals, come from the executive. All the tax policies, bills,
so
come from
what does the
executive.
power of appropriation actually do that you have?
The powers of appropriation that we have is for us what we do. When you bring your taxes, proposals, we go through them. And for taxes, we must pass them.
Oh.
We must pass, it's a law. Even the budget is an act of Parliament, which has a force of law, and we pass it. But the very key movers on this, even if I wanted to propose a bill on tax, I have to go through and get a certificate of financial implication. Even if I want to bring any law, the Minister of Finance must give me a certificate of financial implication, because it's them that have purely the mandate to look into this. So you should call Kasaija here, okay? Put my brother Gobi on the spot. Gobi, the PS now, he's the PS Minister of Finance. Call the Governor Bank of Uganda, okay? Because part of the challenge you have in this economy, as we are talking about after COVID, has been still the cost of credit. Money for capital is still very expensive in this country. Even money, by the way, for Muwanga, the interest rate is 8–10%. So it's not cheap money in any way. As she's an economist, for you to have a business that gives you a return, honest business, where you are paying interest of 24%, 19%. These are things that needs to be addressed by the executive. So you should have, it's only in this country where a crisis of the president has come up and explained Ukraine, but in other countries, fuel, firewood going up, a prime minister may even go. If it was in UK, a prime minister would not be sleeping.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying Parliament will do our part.
Hold on.
But
hold on
the burden lies with the executive.
Muwanga Kivumbi, hold on to your point. Dr. Ronette, hold on, because we're going to take a break. And when we come back, let's try to dig deep and understand this situation and how we can dig ourselves out of the hole where Uganda is right now. We'll be right back.
Million.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. You're watching On The Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight are Dr. Ronette Atukunda, Head of Economics at Makerere University Business School, and Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, Shadow Minister of Finance, and we're discussing Uganda's skyrocketing commodity prices and the economy at large. Honorable, we are getting into okay, you explained the issue of the budget cycle, but there are many things that are confronting us. We have seen our neighbors in the north, in Sudan, people are actually protesting now because of the cost of bread. And in other countries, actually, when the price just go a little bit higher, they go on the street. But maybe for us, we are cushioned by the other factors that are in our favor. You can still find something to eat, even though Dr. Ronette says that's just poverty anyway. We need to aspire to be better. So how do we get out of this, Dr. Ronette?
How do we get out of
these commodity prices rising up and then the economy getting shaky?
Yes, the very first thing we must understand is a price is a function of many things. As economists, we call it a dependent variable. A price doesn't fall from the skies. So we need to look at what are the factors that are causing these prices to rise. And if the factors are emanating from outside the environment, the factors are external, then the very first prudent thing I believe Ugandans should do is before we wait to say government etuyambe, the very first thing is tighten your own belt. As you wait for them to come and do something to reduce the prices, the very first thing is tighten your own belt. Otherwise, it will snap. You will be in trouble. And then from the side of government, like you were saying, the lights are off, they've gone to sleep. I want to believe they are working. I want to believe they're crunching the numbers. I want to believe they are trying to find solutions on what to do. And look at the global economy. With countries having problems or having shortages in fuel, a number of them even have turned to converting cereals into fuel. So you're finding maize prices are going up, prices for soybean are going up. We can't produce some of those.
Because they want to go green.
Yes. So what if we begin there? It may not be an immediate solution, but it's one of the things that can work. But now, immediately, what can we do? When you go to companies like Bidco, especially tackling soap and the oil, which are about to get guys on the streets, maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, we need to look at the taxes that have been imposed. For example, the tax that has been imposed on the crude oil palm. Whereas it's a really small tax compared to how much the price has gone up, because the tax is 10%, but the price, the increase in the price for cooking oil went up by 77%. But at times, some of these things create just goodwill among manufacturers for them to feel they are with you, but it can only work like for the immediate short run. Might you think about staying the implementation? Might you think about just for the immediate short run until things have settled? Because we believe with time, these global value chains will settle. Of course, China, I mean, Russia is a major factor that is now disrupting what might have settled. But I believe with time, these global value chains will settle because supply will pick up to demand. With, okay, if we're to say the factor of China, of Russia, if we try to exclude that just for a moment, the supply will pick up to demand with time. So you will find that they will settle. And then there is the issue of, I'll bring back Malaysia and Indonesia. Because they are, even in the setting up of the Kalangala oil palm project, Malaysia is a major, major partner here. So why don't we get into bilateral agreements with Malaysia that even if they are increasing on value addition, there must be a percentage that they will keep for us. Because when we are setting up these industries,
for us to be able, for them to be able to accept.
No, when we were setting up the industries, they were a major partner. So we can't have gone into Kalangala oil palm project with Malaysia as a major partner, and then suddenly halfway you're pulling supply of raw materials. Because when we were signing the agreements, you were there with us. So let's get into a bilateral agreement. You may not supply at the same level, but at least guarantee us supply of oil palm. Okay. At least in the immediate short run, because it's one of those things that are throwing us off board.
Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, we have a war going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have the Ugandan forces, I'm sure in thousands of them, in the Congolese jungles. They need money, they need to be sustained, they need equipment, they need a lot. And I don't know how much money is going there, but couldn't that also be a factor?
Yeah, it could be, but just before that, to recap on what the doctor is saying here, you know, you can try to manage the moving variables, but you can also make an assessment of your economy and says what makes us resilient. Okay? And then you work on those factors that, because resilience is built on core foundations that make you survive a storm. Now, oil prices, those bilateral things, may not explain our resilience. I would have expected the Minister of Finance and to look at the factor that make our economy resilient. And one of them is food production and culture. And if you are to have quality seeds, now we are even in a rain planting season, you could now see a more increment on our viability of cheaper seeds to our people. Then you could go into a viability of better and qualitative pesticides, better fertilizers. You look at the reserve told you can manipulate fundamentally, although with small flexibility, the energy sector, and say we have power. How can we avail our people with cheaper power and manufacturers? Now, if you manipulate those factors which you have absolute control, you are likely to have better effect than those that where you are good to go negotiate. What if they refuse? Because they also have an interest. So for me, the assessment of going into those other moving variables, we could go what we are sure about and have an input too. You can look into your priority as you've said, you can look into your priority as where do you spend your money on? Okay? Are you spending a lot of money on Congo, which comes in? What can you do to mitigate? Do you share costs with other partners so that you lessen the burden? Hey, do you have an imperialistic? I don't want to argue about that. As you go into Congo, do you go with an imperialistic mission, it's okay if we occupy a mine that is of a gold mine, we are at a war.
But as a
we are at war.
You should be having an idea of how much money we spend every day in Congo.
I have, you know, it was in the public the other day. The Minister of Finance came. They wanted 250 million or million, I think, per day. Per day. That's a huge sum of money. So you can look into all those other factors and say, what do we do? I looked at the budget call circular again that they have come up with, and they are cutting down things like government should not purchase vehicles. That's the right way to go. You can look into those. What are the huge expenditure lines that you have on your budget? And you then say you can manipulate on them and work. So in my humble view is that, yes, you can burn candles on trying to manage the global factors, but tell we are small players. Okay, I saw the Prime Minister, the big players can do their part. I saw the Prime Minister of Britain going to Saudi Arabia to say, now that we don't have oil, okay, with Russia, can you increase your output and mitigate these factors? So they also have a lot of other countries that can really produce more in the interim because they have capacity to produce more. So those ones will sort themselves out. Me, I want government to come hard on the. That's why I'm saying, when in our solution we suggested, go for the low-hanging fruits. Okay? Temporarily. Because you see, as I told you, when they introduced the digital stamp, I have figures here. Revenue has never effectively improved. Actually, it went down. So we are simply giving money to a private company. Can you suspend it for them? Now, this dipping of oil, fair marking, can't you suspend it tomorrow? What do you lose? It doesn't even take money to the consolidated fund. And what normally hurts is that some of these companies also enjoy a tax holiday. So the simple, you find SIPA doesn't put money in the consolidated fund, is marking your oil and taking money away. So there are small things. Can you review? I'm dying. Of course, the economists will argue that that doesn't help. I'm dying to review tax exemption. Where tax exemption this financial year, the money we're going to exempt is a whopping 7.7 trillion. They can wipe away all our domestic refinancing. Can we go back and review even corporate tax exemption, corporate profit? So for me, in my humble view, is that there's a lot. That's why I'm not feel. So you've pushed the money. I know you've pushed the money they gave you for COVID stimulus into partial development model. Oh, really? Do they have the courage to say we can delay partial development model and survive this? My humble view, those are things you can do, but I don't see them having.
Honorable, you rightly said that we need to leverage where we have a comparative advantage, and one of the areas where we have comparative advantage is in agriculture. So maybe the PDM is going that way. So if you want to leverage your comparative advantage, then help them move out of subsistence production to join the market economy. So at the same time, we cannot be saying that let's leverage our strength and then we are shooting the PDM. The thing with that model is I think is causing the biggest problem, Patrick, is, well, there is corruption on one hand, but because other projects have failed that look like the price development model, its cousins collapsed badly. People look at this one and they're like, it's going to die before it even starts. But I am one of those who like seeing the glass as half full. Edison, who developed the light bulb, or who is purported to develop the light bulb, failed 1,000 times. Maybe government of Uganda has failed 4 times, and in the 5th time they go to hit it. Because they can't get to a point where they say everything has failed. They have to keep trying. They have to keep trying this, and they have to keep trying that. So maybe we give them a chance, because how else are you going to support agriculture? You know? Maybe at the parish, you know, when you're producing at the parish level, I want to think they're also leveraging on this communal thing we still have as Ugandans, that Salongo might fear to steal money because he might be chased off the child, or because he's the one who made us make a
So,
loss,
but if agriculture is to be transformed, really, are you convinced that the PDM will be the thing that can transform agriculture? Because people want water for production. People want some kind of some form of mechanized agriculture. People want some, agriculture extension workers to be there. People want, seeds and all these things that can create a difference. But if you throw money at the problem in a village, I don't think that money is going to solve your problem.
I think, Patrick, convinced might be a strong word to use, but I think give it a chance. Don't kill it before it starts. Just give them a chance, and then when they fail, well, you'll have the happiness of saying, I told you so, but give them a chance. You never know. Give them a chance. I'm sure that the implementation down at the grassroots is still a bit shaky.
Yeah,
like,
because
when money,
the road is littered with so many failures. In fact, you've talked about them from Ntandikwa to Bonabagagawale to Yoga to all those things. Youth Venture Fund and Women Entrepreneurship Fund and all the kind of stuff. They haven't transformed our societies.
Yes.
So we are inclined to think, well, there it comes, another failure, because of the past examples.
Because they've changed I do have my doubts too. That's the truth. I do have my doubts. But like I said, I will choose to see the glass as half full. Because they've decided now, for example, Emyoga, which was the latest one? Yes, Emyoga, was at constituent level. I mean, at constituent level, you'll find me, you'll find him, you'll find anybody. We are in the constituency. But when you come to a parish and somebody is forming a cooperative society, I want to think they are kind of mirroring a microfinance model, where somebody, when you come to borrow money from microfinance, we three must know each other. Because if I fail to pay, you two are in trouble. So I want to think that it will leverage on that by the time you're forming a cooperative society, a thief had better not be there. You're going to kick out the thief before the thief comes.
But Doctor, can I ask you?
Yes.
Have you looked at the past developmental management structure? Because we start from there.
Yes.
Have you looked at it?
Yes, I have.
Who is there?
The parish chief. The sub-county chief.
No, he's not there.
Is it here above the parish chief?
No, the parish chief.
Yes.
The chairperson is the LC2.
Yes.
Chairperson of a parish. The chairperson of a women council, the youth council, disability, chairperson of the ruling party. Okay? And now, who of these is in any way an expert?
Don't forget that these days, to be a parish chief, you have to be a university graduate.
These are sub-county chiefs. I know they do.
The sub-county chief is there.
The sub-county is there. No. I've told you the parish chief.
Yes,
the parish chief.
Yes.
I've known the people they have recruited. I've looked at them in my constituency. Who of them is an expert in anything? And then you see, let me tell you, the problem that affects other programs of government is to give them a political angle. The moment you import politics into management, because right now they're even pushing for NRM chairperson to be a part of the
but you know, Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, nowadays you cannot be a parish chief unless you...
No, parish chiefs, you are not a graduate. They don't recruit graduates. They don't recruit...
This is what is required.
No, what I'm telling you, they do not recruit graduates. I know who they have recruited. So the qualification there is not for graduates. So, but now, the sub-county you should be a graduate. But a parish chief, no. Now, who of these ones, the partners there, first of all, they are all political. Okay, the LC5 chairperson, the chairperson of the Women Council, the Youth Council, the people with disability, so you will expect this to be also taken as a political gift. Then the problem is that I'm not excited even with the amount of money availed. The amount of money availed. I've worked at the figures. They've looked at. First of all, they went for a household survey. They moved away from the population census figures that were giving us high poverty numbers. And they've gone for household survey that gives us 40% Ugandans still in poverty. Now, that is 16 million Ugandans out of 43. A quick math. I'm rounding up figures to the nearest tenth. That is 16 million Ugandans. Now, 16 million Ugandans, even if I made a quick division, I said 16 million Ugandans, I want to help you every year, okay? And I have 1 trillion. That is an average of, that means if 60% of the money went direct to address the challenge, that is 60,000 shillings per person. If we were to go for seedlings of coffee at 20,000, that is the 30 seedlings of coffee. If we were to go for maize, those are 5 kilograms of maize. Can you kick out poverty with those numbers?
But then, Honorable.
And that is assuming that the man has gone to the poorest of the poor.
Yeah.
Now, it's a joke in absolute terms.
Okay, hold on to your points, both of you, because we're going to take a break. When we come back, I'll open the lines. At you two at home, you can be a part of this discussion. You're going to see the numbers on your screen. Pick your phone and call us and tell us what you think and maybe what your experience is on commodity prices where you are, the kind of financial squeeze that you're feeling right now. We'll be right back.
Yeah. You know, Honorable.
Welcome back. You're watching On The Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guests tonight are Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi and Dr. Ronette Atukunda, and we're discussing the state of Uganda's economy and skyrocketing commodity prices. This is a moment when you have to have your say. You're going to see the numbers on the screen. Please pick your phone and tell us what you think. Give us your experience. We get to hear a lot of views from you. But most importantly, if you can maybe propose some kind of solutions, how we can get out of the predicament we seem to be in as a country. One thing that is likely to maybe even make matters worse is that in the next few months, the Kenyans are going to elect an election. And it's likely to be also a very competitive kind of election. If we go by 2007, what happened, the post-election violence that impacted on the region, then we could be in for really a very hard 2022. Your take, Dr. Ronette.
It is such factors, Patrick, that make me refuse what he's saying, that the government is not working. Government is working, but the variables that you cannot correctly predict
Which
are
not
many.
Not even your own
No,
control.
they're not. There are many. Because all we can say is they might. They might. So how do you model on... You can model, but you know at any point your model may be thrown on its head because of that. So yes, we are watching Kenya. We cannot ignore Russia. At the same time, we're in a war in the Congo. So we have a lot of moving pieces. That's why I insist that work is being done. But for me, I would say in the immediate short run, we must look at the prices of those commodities that affect the poorest of the poor. So whereas we are saying, yes, we work on agriculture, the comparative advantage and all that, something has happened in the immediate short run.
Let me first pick some callers who understand I've got some callers online. You tell us your name and where you're from, and please make it precise and concise so that we can get more views. I have... Yes.
Hello, NTG.
Yes, what's your name, sir?
This is Kiwewa Haman, and I'm calling from Kibari, Kochi.
Haman, you're on air. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, I wanted to ask Dr. Atukunda.
Yes.
That is it true what the Prime Minister said, that the price inflation is about that the war in Russia and Ukraine? Is it the one that brought the price increase in Uganda?
Okay. All right. Your question has been very direct. Dr. Ronette will be responding to you as soon as possible. Let me also try to get some more views from you. I have a call online. Hello. Okay. Maybe as we got a connection challenge there. Maybe you can respond to a caller from Kibali.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to believe that the war in Russia is not the cause. Because the war in Russia is something that has just begun, but the prices had already begun to increase. The war in Russia only makes a bad situation worse. It catalyzes what was already going south. when you have prices of fuel that are going through the roof, and at the same time one of the biggest suppliers of fuel is in a war, then it is just making a bad situation worse, but it's not causing it.
I have another call online.
Hello.
Yes, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from? Okay.
Solution.
Okay.
Government yandizizzaawo bagatenera ofiisa n'abalimisa ku byalo ne basooka bayigiriza abannayuganda okulima n'okulunda kubaga amazima bw'onoowa omuntu ssente nga tamaze kuyigirizibwa era ssente zijja kukola ki zijja kulibwa buliibwa so bwe tuze bagatenera ofiisa n'abalimisa ku byalo tugunjula bannayuganda mu bwongo then ebisigadde bijja tugondera.
Okay. I want to agree with you that there should be some kind of sensitization, training farmers for them to know what, you just don't throw money to a problem. People should be prepared to do the same. But Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi, what are we actually selling on the world market as a country?
No. You see some of the things, of course we are coffee, still coffee, cotton, I don't know, I'm not so sure about cotton.
Yeah, but 7 million bags, we had projected by 2020 for us to go to 20 million bags of coffee. We have fallen short by about 13 million.
We're at 5.5, I think.
We have gone to about almost 7 million.
You see, that's why we have issues with the Paris development model. You set out a target. You now want to wipe out money for coffee seedlings. People had set up, of course they will tell you, no, we are only putting money at the parish. Whoever chooses to go for coffee seedlings will have the money and go and get coffee. Okay? So why do you want to die with money for coffee when you are targeting that? So there are a lot of contradictions. But my humble view is that when you look at the structure of our economy, where we are not even touching where we need to touch, until we address the hemorrhage, I know where the hemorrhage is. The hemorrhage of our economy now today is in interest and loan management costs, where 15, 16 trillion out of 45 is due to debt management. Until you address that, and just in interest payment, you are losing 5 trillion out of your 19 collected revenue. Now, when you also put in, you don't address the security challenges of the country. Security challenge, globally, the money you are spending on security. And that's why I've said there's a problem of sustainability of our peace in the long run. Because if you are pumping out of the budget, security and governance is taking the biggest chunk of your expenditure. So for me, that's why I'm not so excited about parish model. With the 1 trillion out of 45 going there.
Let me first quickly
that doesn't excite me.
Who has been listening to you, Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi and Dr. Ronette. I have a call online. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Birigiji Snaj calling from Port.
I'm sorry, sir?
Birigiji Snaj calling from Port.
Okay, the line is not very clear, but go right ahead with your comment or question.
My name is Birigiji Snaj and I'm calling from Port.
Okay.
And my idea, actually, thank you for the program. Hello, come again?
Go right ahead. Tell us what you have to say tonight.
Yeah, thank you for the program that you're initiating. But I think if we are to serve people better, we need to change on the approach from top bottom to bottom top. There are some of the programs that we are trying to, that the government is trying to initiate, and they don't address the exact problems that the people in the community are facing. And as long as we don't do a prototype and think of programs that are directly empowering the people in the community, we shall continue not having positive results that look at direct empowerment of the people within our communities that we are serving. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, a caller there from Fort Portal. By the way, there's a program from Bank of Uganda to help out small businesses, giving them some money so that they can recover, especially those that have suffered from COVID-19 effects.
Uganda apply for it.
Yeah.
Let me get it.
Okay. Let me take another caller.
Uganda apply for it.
Hello.
Tell me the results.
Hello.
So thank you for the presentation.
Could you say that again, sir?
Thank you for the presentation. Some calling from Guinea.
The line is not... Okay, go right ahead, sir.
So my problem, my question is about there's a point that Ronette Atukunda is trying to bring out about the real estate the government should listen. But I think there is a problem on this government that there is a certain image that they want to create internationally to the international maybe part that is not actually in Uganda. They want international maybe like allies to look at Uganda in some other way that is not really perfect. Then my other point is about the tax policy. Can all of us Ugandans ask ourselves that even if they get those companies tax holidays for even 10 years, will they even ever try to comfort us?
You want like everybody's getting tax holiday?
Coming up every after election.
Okay.
And these all are companies
unfortunately, your line is not very clear. Apologies. The line is not very clear, so we're unable to hear you so well. But you seem to have suggested that maybe all Ugandans should get a tax holiday. In fact, for about 10 years, maybe we can move on. I don't know. That may be too much to ask for, but and yet the Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi is saying we need to increase on our tax ratio, the GDP, from 12 where we are to around 16. I even wonder when you say increase on the tax ratio GDP, yet you're talking about knocking off some of the taxes.
No, that's what I've told you. You know, I was thinking about hemorrhage. You spend 15, and then last year we spent 5 trillion in a classified expenditure. This is where the real challenge is an economy. And a lot of this money was borrowed domestically, worsening the interest payment and our debt redemption level every year. That's why the solutions to our economy largely cannot be sorted out by simply addressing the economic factors. I've looked at the smart economists like her. Listen to the people who designed the political, the Paris development keenly. They fail to completely understand the challenge this country faces. You have a social, economic, political challenge. Until you fix your politics, address the pushers of the defense budget, address the pushers of your political instability and insecurity, and lower the cost of governance and security, and lower the appetite for borrowing, and all of the other, because most of the borrowing, let me tell you, most of the borrowing that has happened on domestic market, which is the biggest hemorrhage now, have been towards funding the defense sector. So can you put your head on it? I've listened to smart fellows who are designing a Paris model. They're a batch of cowards. They think our problems are in those fine data from the villages. Not at all. The challenges are elsewhere. And you've got to address the whole equation. I want to sit down with an economist who has a whole round solution to our challenge. And they're not easy answers. They're not easy answers. So without addressing the hemorrhage, I know where now the hemorrhage is. You know, you are not going to go to the village, to the parish. In my village, we grow ginger, Butambala, Ntangawuzi. Because of the availability of market, the growers of ginger don't need the parish development model money. They only need to improve their market. Because money, they push in millions of shillings of money. When people here came up with a program to grow vanilla, they did not wait for credit. They found the money to invest in because they were assured of market. We went to Teso, pretended to put up a fruit factory, told people grow fruits. What happened? The factory is stuck. Now, is the problem of Teso today because there are no oranges? It's because we put up a production line that cannot even process the local oranges. So really, is that, are you addressing that? So for me, I am not sold out, and a lot of people don't have the guts I have, to tell the people who are designing a Paris model, is that they have thought about the challenges you're going to have. Actually, it's just political, and it will boil down to naked politics. And behind it, they don't explain the role of the army. They just view it as a security, containment,
I know
factor.
you're a politician, she's an economist, but
Yes.
you seem to suggest our problem is also a leadership issue. Do you agree?
Exactly.
Do you agree? If I could just try to summarize it that way.
I am not going to say yes or no. Well, let me first tackle what he has said. He said there's hemorrhaging of funds from, for example, paying back interest. There's hemorrhaging of funds from the security side that should be addressed. But I want to submit to you, Honorable, that whereas those are problems, it does not mean turn your attention that way and ignore this side.
I'm not saying so.
For example, if we are paying 5 million interest on loans, then we are paying 5 interest on loans. There's nothing you can do. You can't say 1, 2, 3, stop. You already borrowed the money. You have to continue paying. There is no way around it. Maybe going forward, you can rethink the borrowing, but that 5 trillion is going to go until the loans are done.
And you know, somebody has sent a question and actually says, my OG, she's very well informed. That's what he says. What are the low-hanging fruits? Government, he says, what are the low-hanging fruits government of Uganda can leverage to reverse the situation? And 2, what's your view on social safety nets to focus on the very poor? Conditional cash transfers? And 3, how do we resolve what he calls the trilemma of higher citizen expectations, diminished tax returns, and citizens who don't want to pay tax or their government to borrow? Dr. Obuku.
Higher citizen expression? Okay, I think I got one very clearly. The very low-hanging fruits. And for me, I insist, let us begin by solving the problem of soap and oil. Okay, and all these other commodities that the local, the very poorest of the poor must use. And that's why I think there must be a bit of a focus on that sector. Let's try and focus on that sector. We're doing many things, but try and focus on that sector in the very, very, very immediate short run. We're not going to wake up tomorrow and the prices will have dropped. But let us begin on coming up with practical methods of how we can reverse the increase in the price of something like soap. Whereas cooking oil, even in the CPI...
You seem to suggest that we should be in negotiation with Malaysia that is giving us the bulk of the raw materials for making what? But negotiation, you don't know how it will turn out. Anyway.
Yes, you may never know how negotiation will turn out, but then you cannot say you will not start.
Because they also want to improve themselves. They also want to go...
No, remember, Patrick, they've said they're increasing value addition from 10 to 20, and they're increasing from 20 to 40. There's still the other 80, and there's still the other 60. So if you go in early, you can negotiate and get a good, especially because we are already working with them in the Kalangala oil palm. You can always begin from there. You can always start from there. Because whereas we can help improve agriculture, what about today or tomorrow?
You know, you talked about hemorrhage and also maybe also wastage. There was a plan by government to sort of align some of these ministries, departments and agencies of government and you know, maybe some of them to merge them and stuff like that, so that maybe government can save some money, but that was never materialized. Would that be one way, perhaps?
That's what I've told you. There is the challenges of governance. You remember when I first went to a budget committee and told them there was a shock, and I showed them, you know, this budget we're passing has these levels of extravagance. And out of my small research, I have a very small research task force around me of about 2 or 3 people. We uncovered 5 trillion. Said, these 5 trillions, and we went for easy things. Don't buy new cars. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Cut travel abroad. The things that today are flying in government policy. It refocused government to critically what needs to be done. Even if now people want to tell you Kenya is going through an election, should that surprise you? It's a predictable. A date is known. A month is known. We can even predict that the Kenyan thing will last. If the worst case scenario you remodel, it will go for 3 months. And you can remodel that. And caution yourself. That takes planning. That takes leadership. Now, NSSF, which you have tried to say it will impact on, I don't buy into what you are saying, because who saves with NSSF?
We actually talked about that off air, so
Yeah,
you can explain it again. Yeah,
It was off
I was
air.
asking. Yeah, I was asking
yes.
whether if 50 billion goes into the economy
You
every
see,
week or every month.
Because the people who are saving with NSSF, okay, NSSF savers, are people who are going to get this money and pay school fees.
Yeah.
Okay? And meet health bills. Some of them are like you and me, NSSF people. They're quickly going to go and build rentals for durable returns. That's what they're likely to do. I'm not predicting that 50 billion of NSSF sounds as though it will hugely lead to a worse. They'll not do anything that they've not been doing. They're not going to go to the bank to drink the money. Who serves with NSSF? And what's their profile? You can profile them. Okay? If I can profile them, I can predict where they're likely to put the money. Okay? If I was smarter, I can put a tax in a tax proposal. I say, well, you'll go for more data. Let me find a smarter way. But I'm not saying I'm not on part of that idea. But so you can predict. So most of the modeling you have today, the challenges you have today, you can predict them. Even what you are talking about, yes, interest payment you have to pay. But you can impact on utilization of the loans. Yeah. You borrow, how can you borrow money? If you borrowed money, doctor, from a bank, mortgaged your house, and you don't use it, I'll call you stupid. But for a country, I don't want to say it is stupid. But if you went to a bank, put in your land title, okay, got 700 million, and begin to pay interest, and the money is lying idle on the account, you were full square. But I don't want to say that the people running an economy are stupid or foolish. But that's what they do. Can you do it, Kamara? In your own sober day, unless you are drunk. Run to a bank, borrow money, and leave it with the bank. I say, I've borrowed, now I've taken, but I'm not going to return. In this country, we do that.
There was a classical case in Jinja where they borrowed to build a school for tourism. For more than 8 years, they were paying interest, and that money was never put to use until recently.
For 8 years. So really, much as you are talking about the borrowing, you know, we have also looked at this country, and we financed, we gave UNRWA money, okay, in a budget to come up with a unit cost for our roads. The average unit cost. Do a study, come up with a unit cost. Because you are building gravel, okay? You are giving a Maram road. You are building predictable things. Can you give us a unit cost, sir? And we know that to build a standard road of this much, this is the way.
1 kilometer is $1 million.
It's $1 million. These are things we are talking about. If we can streamline them, and for the local people, I keep saying, I do some agriculture. I do some agriculture and good agriculture. When you go to Mbarara to buy a bunch of matoke at 3,000, okay, at farm gate, what causes the price to be 15,000 in Makerere? And the woman selling it does not earn more than 500 shillings or 10,000 off. So what's the difference, the imbalance? I want an economics, I would have asked, I want you to study, what's this imbalance? Is it the transporter making off a kill? My answer is no. So unless you address the difference between a farm gate and even a domestic product, what explains that today kilo of maize will go for 800, and then by end of the day you've invested, it goes to 300? What's that imbalance? How can you attract investment in a sector like that? So these are things I would have expected the parish model to address.
Okay. Our time is almost out. Let me come back to you, Dr. Ronette, so that you can give us your concluding remarks tonight.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you for having me here. I believe that we are finding ourselves in a time of crisis. I believe that it's a time to institute some emergency measures. It may not be for long, but institute emergency measures to stabilize, especially stabilize the prices of some commodities. Otherwise, the trickle effect on inflation and others, it will just keep growing. So stabilization, that is why I'm insisting Malaysia must come into this mix, especially in the immediate short run. And I will still submit to you that let's first solve those factors that are causing the economy to overheat at the moment. We may not be able to touch fuel. Unfortunately, we don't have the reserves. We may not be able to affect the price of Brent. We may not want to touch the fuel tax because that tax was set with some expenditures in mind. So let us handle these other factors that are really affecting us. That if people can save on something like soap and cooking oil, but especially soap, because it has a bigger weight in the CPI, save on soap, then you spend that on transport. Transport sector is another that has really gone up. The fares have really gone up in the past 3 months. And then in the medium and longer term, yes, let's handle agriculture. It's our comparative advantage. We cannot ignore leveraging on agriculture to help us grow.
Are you suggesting some kind of price control?
No. As an economist, no. Because you can never solve the issue. You can never tackle a problem with matoke from the matoke. That's the price. The problem is at the roots. Okay. Because when you tamper with price, it always brings other issues around you. So no tampering with the prices.
All right, your parting shot.
A quick one, I would ask government to call the contract of SIPA on
people in charge of the digital stamps
and fuel marking. That's a doable thing. I would ask government, as I said in my press conference, to look at extending the energy incentive, the electricity incentive, not only to bigger companies, but also to small and medium manufacturers. They will increase the supply. I don't know the import of we destroyed the whole forest range in Kalangala to grow palm oil. Now, Dr. here is, how can we use that? We caused the environmental challenges to have that Kalangala palm oil.
No, it is producing. Production
so
went
how
up
is it
to,
aiding us?
Production
now?
Went up to about 3,000 or 4,000 metric tons. It's just that the demand stands at 15. So it is doing something, but the demand is still a bit high.
So I would have taken action for them to say, can you show more cause why we should continue to sustain you or give you more land? Because at times of this nature, I said, you look at resilience, you look at what you have at home. How can that one help us? You would also speak to, and I would believe government should go and speak to people like Mukwano, okay, a direct conversation, and says, what can you do to ensure that maybe you leverage, you give them a financial stimulus, okay, to help them lower down the cost of production of their soup. So I would have expected government to engage. If the drivers of the inflation, as you say, they are around the oil, palm-related products. So who are the people engaged in that sector? So how do we use our financial institutions to help them, okay, address that problem so that their cost of production goes down, so that their prices go up? That's why, for me, these are doable things. I would have expected government to engage because they're known. You talk to sugar manufacturers, and they're not many. You speak to shop manufacturers, there are not many. What is it that you can do? And how can you help them leverage their situation and you lower down? That's why I expected a meeting of this nature to have taken place. That's why I falter at a time like this to pass the treasury. And the lights are off at 6.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Honorable Muwanga Kivumbi. I want to thank you so much.
And I hope my friends there don't take offense.
I want to thank you so much, Dr. Ronette Atukunda, and most importantly, I want to thank you, the viewer, for your great company. I know we are paying through the nose, we are feeling the financial squeeze. The predicament we are in is not a good one. The situation could be dire, but Dr. Atukunda has told us that we need to tighten our belt so that we can be able to live within our means and be frugal. We've been through tumultuous times as a country. We always pull through. I'm thinking, and I want to believe, Uganda, we shall pull through. Good night and God bless Uganda.